Get rid of the helmets. Let's do this. Get rid of the helmets and hang the jerseys. Let's do that. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college basketball here to discuss March Madness with you, if that's what you'd like to talk about. Of course, I'm still the voice of college football. Yes, the voice of college football. But for this one time, maybe two times, maybe three times, maybe through the end of March, we will allow you to talk basketball if you so choose. If you want to talk college basketball, give us your score updates. Give us your best moments of the day, your bracket buster moments of the day. Put those in the live chat. Call me on the phone line. We'll talk college basketball if that's what you want to talk about. I am not encouraging college basketball discussion here whatsoever. But if you would like to talk college basketball, it's that time of year. I get it. I do get it. And we have been nothing but college football here forever. Nothing but college football with a sprinkle of the NFL once in a while. Little NFL talk. Man, I got to scratch that itch one day and start that NFL channel. But it's March, so it's March Madness. And if you guys really knew my background, you would know, hey, I've covered a lot of March Madness in my time. So if you want to talk college basketball, we will. We'll run through the scores, catch you up on what's going on. If you haven't had a chance to watch today, I watched more college basketball today than I have in years. And I watched about 45 minutes. So that's about what I caught. We have 5 people on the line. And so we'll get up to about 5,000 in this hour, I'm sure. All right, so I appreciate everyone who jumped online with us about 2 hours ago. Unfortunately, things took me away, so I apologize for that. Sorry for the inconvenience. I thank you so much for being here for the live streams. You guys know that I probably come on here live more than anybody on YouTube, I think. So every once in a while, unfortunately, something else pulls me away. But I'm yours. I'm all yours. College football talk. Anything you can come up with that would be college football related, I'll take it. Please call me up. But otherwise, college basketball, I will take your calls as well. Yes, I am open to March Madness. I've relented. Knock down these football helmets. Let's get some jerseys up here. Some jerseys minus the arms, those basketball jerseys. Let's get those up here. All right. All right, I'm going to dive into the live chat. I'll remind everyone that you can catch me on Patreon. It's a good time over there, exclusive live streams. We just had somebody join today. Was grateful to see that. Somebody joined us on Patreon today, exclusive live streams. Maybe I do too many live streams on here. We'll do more on Patreon. But yes, it's a good time over there. Watch parties during the season. If somebody can come up with an idea for a watch party off season, let's do it. So come up with an idea for a watch party off season style. We'll do that. And of course, you get my predictions, and you would have made a lot of money last year. You would have made some money. Wasn't one of my better performances in the prediction process last year, but we got it done. So anyway, Patreon, hit us up there. Just search Mark Rogers TV. Let's run down these scores. And let me get the phone number online. I took down the ticker concerning Amazon, but you know the deal there. If everybody that watches us on a regular basis would shop Amazon using the link in the description section, we would be all set. So let's start doing that, please. All right. Oklahoma State and Liberty are on the court right now. That would have been a heck of a football game, huh? The Flames and the Cowboys, they could have gotten together last year. That would have been a decent game. Liberty lost just the one game to North Carolina State last year. Liberty and Hugh Freeze, they were mighty tough. They're mighty tough tonight. What is that, a 5-12 game? No, it's actually a 4-13 game with Oklahoma State leading 56-50 in the second half. Oh, we got Wisconsin running away from North Carolina 53-37 in an 8-9 game. Another heck of a football game. I would rather see that as a football game than a basketball game. Wisconsin, North Carolina. And maybe at some point during this show tonight, I will weigh March Madness versus the bowl season. I had attempted to do that the other night, but we just got too many phone calls. But to weigh my thoughts about the pluses for the bowl season versus the pluses for March Madness. Wisconsin, though, 53-39. Houston's got a 10-point lead on Cleveland State. Is this Cleveland State's first appearance in the tournament since the Kevin Mackey days when they upset Indiana? Remember that? 1986, I believe. Kevin Mackey and Cleveland State. They made it to the Sweet 16, did they not? Before they lost to David Robinson, the Admiral. Houston leads Cleveland State 39-31. And, of course, you can't mention Houston basketball without thinking about Clyde Drexler and Hakeem Olajuwon and Phi Slamma Jamma. North Texas and Purdue. This would be an upset, too. Another Big Ten team going down at this point, 32-24. The 4 seed at halftime with only 24 points on the board. Illinois drubbed Drexel 78-49. Baylor is a 1 seed, knocks off Hartford as 79-55. The big upset of the day, the Ohio State goes down to the Oral Roberts, 75-72. Would like to know how many people out there, without Googling, how many people know who Oral Roberts is? I got to think in this day and age that many college basketball fans are thinking, or probably give it no thought as to that actually being a person. Colgate and Arkansas, Hogs win at 85-68. A lot of these scores I haven't seen yet. Loyola of Chicago, I know a lot of people liked them to advance, 71-60 over the Ramblin' Wreck. Utah State and Texas Tech, Red Raiders win at 65-53. We've got Virginia Tech in overtime taking on Florida. Gators win at 75-70. Oregon State easily over Tennessee, 70-57. So we've already had a 5-12 upset, a 2-15 upset, which there have only been 10 in the history of the game, which sounds like a lot, 10. But you got to think that they started seeding in 85, 86, somewhere around there. So it's we're at about 35 years of seeding. About 35 years of seeding. There are 4 regions, so that would be 4 per year, 4 2-15 seeded games per year times 35. That's about 170 times. About 170 matchups between 2 and 15 seeds. There's only been 10, 15 seeds win. So they're about 10 and 160. So that Oral Roberts win over Ohio State today is about a 1 in, what is that? About a 1 in 20 chance, 1 in 15 to 16 chance. All right. Those are all the scores for today. And then later tonight, we've got Rutgers and Clemson. That would be a heck of a football game, huh? Syracuse, San Diego State. I always look at these as football matchups. Syracuse, San Diego State, okay. Morehead State in West Virginia, the home of Phil Simms there, and Kevin McGuffey. Winthrop and Villanova. Okay. All right. Taking your calls at 860-499-3332, 499-3332. 860 is the area code. 499-3332. Lock it in right there. It's on the ticker. Also, keep in mind that you can get a free mask. Need a mask? They're still needed in certain locations, certain states. Get yourself a mask, a college football mask. Pick out your favorite team. Just go to MarkRogersTV. Hang on. Just go to Voice of College Football, voiceofcollegefootball.com. I'm so used to saying MarkRogersTV.com. Voiceofcollegefootball.com. go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. Hey, go there just to check out our site and see what we've got there. It was just launched about a month ago. I think we've done a heck of a job. Other people have, not necessarily myself. They have. Our guy Bobby, Dennis have done a heck of a job with our website, voiceofcollegefootball.com. Go there, go to the top menu bar, register for free. It's right there. You know what you do there? You register for free. We send you a coupon. You get that coupon code. You use it to get your face mask. Then you get 20% off your first purchase, and you also get entered into a drawing for a $25 gift card. How about that? All right, let's get to the chat here. So much appreciate that super chat that came in. We'll get to it in just a second. Phil B. Ohio State laughing at the Buckeyes. And this is the time to laugh, of course, at all the teams that fall, all the big favorites that fall. I get it. Go Steelers and Michigan. Steelers, Michigan. Where does this individual live? In Ohio, possibly. They just couldn't make up their mind and had to go to Pittsburgh. I grew up around Steeler fans. I get it. I grew up in Ohio, but there were Steeler fans all over the place because people are front runners. People are front runners. So a lot of Cowboys fans. I get it. And Steelers fans. And then Michigan football fans in Ohio, which was always disgusting. Hurricane Logan, what is up? This guy, Hurricane Logan, he's a one of a kind. Great supporter of what we're doing here. He gets it, definitely. Hurricane, thank you, man. You're awesome. Hope you had a good day. Hope there are better days to come for you. But I appreciate your support. Appreciate all that you do for us. And I want to remind everyone that your individual contributions, whether it's through the super chat, so we very much appreciate those because we know that you work hard and hope you enjoy the content. And for this to continue, it's going to continue because of a number of reasons. One would be your individual contributions, and most notably at Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App. You can go that route. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. I'll get the banner up here in a second. My man Nathan. So last night we did quite the Notre Dame live stream with Nathan. We also had Brian Driscoll on from Irish Breakdown. Had a great conversation there. What do we got here? Nathan, how about college baseball, Mark? We got walk-offs here in South Bend, so it must have been a nice day for the Notre Dame baseball team. My college baseball experience, so when I went to Kent State, the college baseball program under Danny Hall was first rate. He then left Kent State for greener pastures at Georgia Tech and built them into a national power. So the college baseball at Kent State was exceptional when I got there. And they were really good. Nobody cared, but they were really good. I went down to a couple of games because I was, of course, in the journalism program. Went down to a couple of games. There were like 13 people there watching the games. That was my experience with college baseball. I lived within miles of two Division I baseball programs and never went to a game because I was 45 minutes from the Cleveland Indians. That was my team. That was my heart and soul. If it's quite a debate as to whether my all-time favorite team, the team that captured my heart the most, would be Ohio State football, Cleveland Indians baseball. And when I was a little lad, until about the age of 20, the Dallas Cowboys. That's another story. But the Indians baseball and Ohio State football, I could not tell you. Now, where those two teams rate now, completely different story. But I'm talking about growing up and up until about 2 to 3 years ago for Indians baseball. Just it was in my soul, just the tribe. Believe me, the tribe. And so just a huge Indians fan from the time I was just a tyke. But college baseball, knew nothing about college baseball. Then I got my job as sports director at a CBS station in Mississippi. And then all of a sudden I was introduced to college baseball. And wow, I did not realize. When I grew up, I would see the College World Series and maybe get hooked for a day or two, an hour or two, maybe. Didn't really pay attention to it. Couldn't relate to it. These were football schools. They were baseball schools that I didn't know anything about. Cal State Fullerton. And then I went again and took this job in Mississippi at the CBS station, and I had to cover college baseball, and it was awesome to cover the SEC. I saw a ton of major leaguers go through there. I went to NCAA tournaments every year. I went to super regionals. I went to College World Series and covered all those games. Yeah, I fell in love with college baseball. For me to be working and having to be on the air at 6 o'clock, let's say, and this is what I would do. I would either go out to Dudy Noble Field at Mississippi State, which was only about a 25-minute drive from the station, and there might be a 3 o'clock game. And I'd go out and I'd shoot about 4 innings, get a hot dog, something to drink, hang out with some fans, shoot the game for about 4 innings, hop in the station car, head on back to the station, put together my sportscast for 6:20. Or what I would do more often than that would be to actually bring out the satellite truck, do the whole show from the baseball game. Loved doing that. Loved it. We'd either have an afternoon game early in the season. We'd have day games during the afternoon at Mississippi State. We'd do it at Ole Miss too, but it was like a 2-hour hike there and over to Alabama, which was about an hour plus away. But at Mississippi State, most notably because it was close, and we go to Mississippi State, and that was a phenomenal day. That was a good day, in May, let's say. And I'm going out for a 3 o'clock baseball game. The game's over at 6. I got the coach. I got players on my show at 6:20. We're doing the sports live out at the Mississippi State baseball game. Or if they had a 7 o'clock game, then I'm interviewing the manager and the players before the game. That was always a wrestling match with the sports information department and the baseball team to get one of the players on the show right before they hit the field. But that always worked. And then we would see you out there for the baseball game. So college baseball, yeah, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Alabama, going to super regionals and NCAA tournaments, College World Series, big time. Had a great time. SEC tournament. Mississippi State hosted the SEC tournament one of those years I was there. So I was there covering games from noon until midnight. Yeah, that brings back some good memories there, Nathan. All right. We're talking college football, baseball, and basketball. How do I feel about the loss to Oral Roberts? So I got to tell you, Falcon ERX, that had that been an Ohio State basketball loss from like 1978 to 2010, something in that range, I would have been pretty devastated. Especially in the 80s and 90s. Then once into the 2000s, yeah, I would have still been pretty devastated, pretty hurt. Over the last 10 years, I've not even watched Ohio State play. I've not even watched the tournament games. I don't have a recollection of them playing in the tournament the last almost 10 years. The last game I really remember was them playing Kansas in the Final Four in 2011 or 12, something in that range. Then after that, I just started losing interest. So I flipped the game on, the Ohio State game, with about, I didn't even know that they were playing, to tell you the truth. So Years ago, I would have known exactly who they were playing, when, would have been all set, geared up for the game. Boom. I'd have been watching all this from noon on. I wouldn't be doing this live stream. I would just be watching. Then about 10 years ago, at least 10 years ago, I started not caring. So I didn't know they were playing. And then I flipped on the TV. I saw that, just wanted to see who was on. I was like, oh, Ohio State's on. And that was some point in the second half, and I watched the rest of the game. I watched like the last 15 minutes of game time in the overtime. And actually, I got to tell you, I fell asleep at one point even during that short time frame of basketball viewing. I fell asleep. So I missed, I woke up and there was like 90 seconds left in the game, and I watched the overtime. So that's about how much that hurts me. What do we got here from Let's Toast Media? Mark, should I start J start over Cade? Cade, J. Sorry, I need full names. Not keeping up there. Oh, whoa. We're talking Michigan quarterbacks. All right. Yes. Okay. This is what I do. Let's Toast Media. And they're already a couple weeks into deep into spring practice. So it's too late now, but this is what I would have done. JJ McCarthy's a 5-star. Cade McNamara's seemingly a decent player, but we've only seen him for a game and a half. I would go the boom or bust route. I would gear the offense surrounding JJ McCarthy. Whatever he does best, whatever throws he makes best, whatever plays he's most confident and comfortable in, I would build the offense around him. Because it's not going to be so dissimilar that Alan Bowman could not operate that offense. But I would gear it all toward J.J. McCarthy and investing everything I have into J.J. McCarthy. Not that Cade McNamara is not going to get reps with the first team. That's not what I mean. This would all be done under the surface. We wouldn't announce this. We're building the offense for J.J. McCarthy, and Cade McNamara, we're definitely considering you as second or third stringer. No. None of this would be stated. But I would build the offense around J.J. McCarthy and really, really invest the time into him learning the playbook and doing what he does best and grooming him to be the starter this year. That's what I would do, because you always have the safety net of Alan Bowman and Cade McNamara to a certain extent. And the offense that you build around J.J. McCarthy isn't going to be that egregiously different than what you would build otherwise. I'd put all my marbles, I'd push all my chips to J.J. McCarthy to start game one. And again, if he gets hurt or proves incapable of learning the plays and really owning the playbook and owning the huddle, even though there's typically no huddle anymore, but you know what I mean? Leading the team from that standpoint, then you just switch gears and your offense is still your offense. So I'm a JJ guy, and I've not seen either one of them. Well, I've seen Cade McNamara. I saw the Rutgers come back and some of the Penn State games. So I've seen him play a little bit. I don't really have an evaluation on Cade McNamara past that, because he's only played the game and a half. And JJ McCarthy, I don't watch high school football. So we only know he's a 5-star and that he's phenomenal. We'll see if it translates and they can develop him. That's, of course, huge. I had a conversation today with Corey Brada. I hope I didn't botch his name. It's the first time he's been on, and he talks Iowa football, and he's got a tremendous audio podcast that he's moved to YouTube as well, and that's going to be released here very soon. And that was a great conversation on Iowa football. So I encourage all of you to watch that. It'll be out here soon, within the next week, something in that range. But I have been starving for Iowa football content, and I think I finally found my man. All right. Again, the numbers down below on the ticker, 860-499-3332. Somebody's calling the old number. So please call the updated number. Maybe I do have some calls coming in, but I would typically see those. Nope. Yes, I do. Hey, here we go. We've got some folks on the line. We got Kevin coming in from Dallas, Georgia. And Kevin, actually, I'm interested to see that we've got a different display for me to take these calls. Of course, you don't see that, but kind of surprised me when I looked over at our screen here. Kevin, how are we doing today?
Great. How you doing this evening, Mark?
I am doing just fine. Let me switch things over to get you on the phone line here. I am doing just fine. What's on your mind? Hello, Kevin.
Wanted to piggyback as far as the conversation that you had with the wholesome one. The first question I had, and I was going to try to make this a little challenging because I have to preface it by stating that not including Mullen as well as Harbaugh, but which one of the three following coaches that you feel that will not be at their present institution in 5 years? And that would be Kelly, Notre Dame, as far as Day, Ohio State, and Lincoln, Oklahoma.
So you're taking the positive route, basically. Typically, we think of coaches not being at jobs because they didn't win enough and they got let go. Especially in the case of Lincoln Riley and Ryan Day, I'm thinking that they would move on to the NFL. They wouldn't be fired because they didn't win enough. Probably the same with Brian Kelly. Wow, this is just a guess. I'm going to go with. I almost started to pull the trigger on Brian Kelly because he's been at Notre Dame the longest. And even though he's got the program to a point where it's at its height under him and its highest point since Lou Holtz in like 1992, 93, he has been there the longest. So the probability is that he will be the first to leave. Just looking at sheer probabilities of coaches leaving a job or being ousted out of a job at a certain period of time, since he's been at that institution the longest, the probabilities say that he will be the first one to go. But I'm looking at, and I don't know what Ryan Day or Lincoln Riley's interest is in the NFL. I really don't. But I got to think that long term, they're both young men that they will eventually coach in the NFL, I think. So I'm going to go with Lincoln Riley.
Whoa, okay, because I was more the line out. Initially, I was with you as far as Kelly because I was looking at as far as Kelly being north of 50, and I was looking at the other guys. At least as far as King is not King, excuse me, but as far as Riley's concerned, isn't Riley still north of 40?
Yeah, so I went the Riley route because I don't think Brian Kelly's going to go to the NFL. I don't see an NFL team hiring him. Not because he's not capable, not good, but I always think that there's going to be a better candidate in front of him. So I don't see him leaving for an NFL job. I just don't think he's going to be that coveted. And so I think he's, and of course, in college football, where's he going to go? Where's he going to go that's better than Notre Dame? He's not going to go anywhere. Notre Dame's pretty much on tier one. If people understand where I'm headed there, I don't mean they're the best program in the country, but you really can't go anywhere from a certain 5 or 6 schools in the country. And I think he's at one of them, unless he had a preference to go somewhere else. So I'm going to go with Lincoln Riley.
Wow. The reason why I was leaning, more so toward, as far as Riley as well as Day staying longer, because I was thinking that they were going to probably at least put 5 to 10 years in because in those 5 to 10 years, they should be able to win X amount of national championships. And then by that being the case, it would add to that resume that, okay, within maybe that period of time, I can not only just be a coach of an NFL team, but, as in the words of Bill Parcells, as far as not only filling up the cart with the groceries, but also paying for the groceries too, as far as being a decision maker. Because I don't see either one of those guys leaving Ohio State or Oklahoma unless they have, quote, the Urban Meyer contract, as in, okay, not only I'm the coach, but a decision maker. So.
Well, if you look at Lincoln Riley, he's already been at Oklahoma for 2017, 18, 19, 20. He's already been there for 4 years. So you gave me a 5-year window. So that would take him to 9 years.
Now, what about in reference to Day? Because I think Day has only been the head man for, 2-3 years?
Yeah, he's only been there for 2 seasons. And neither one of those guys necessarily has attachments to the program. Like Urban Meyer had attachments to Ohio State. He was a grad assistant there. His mentor and idol is Earl Bruce. He grew up in Ohio. He always wanted to be the Ohio State head coach. Like Ryan Day is the Ohio State head coach because it's the best job he can get. And it's arguably the best job in the country. That's why he's there. But he would have done the same at Oklahoma, Alabama. He doesn't have an attachment to Ohio.
And piggybacking as far as on the wholesome one, as far as your all's conversation in regards to which state, if they had to survive off of in-state talent, those that would flourish and those that would perish. And I didn't have the time as far as to go each conference. But I'm going to go on as what they say, the SEC, it means more. And it may shock you a little bit, Mark, and I was just going by maybe about a half a dozen or so programs. The ones that I felt that would thrive would be Texas A&M, Florida, LSU, Mississippi, and Georgia. Now, as far as my particular institution, I would say that at best, if they had to survive strictly off the state of Alabama, would be 8+1. Now, as far as the other state, the other school in the state, which we call Caltech, they would suffer, Mark. And it's simply because most of the kids that they've been recruiting for the past 100 years have been Georgia kids. During Malzahn's time, they didn't recruit any kids. Most of the kids they recruited was Georgia. And I don't know and I hope that as far as under the new coach, that they're going to invest more time and more energy as far as in-state kids. But when it comes to Alabama, if you look at pretty much 4 cities in the state, they could survive. And that would be Birmingham, Montgomery, my hometown, Mobile, as well as Huntsville. If they can get those 4 cities, as far as send kids to Tuscaloosa, they could survive, like I said, the 8+1. But the ones that would definitely suffer also, other than Auburn, would be Tennessee, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, as well as Kentucky.
All right. You ready for mine?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's start all the way out to the West Coast, because this is how I look at it. You got California talent, which is top 3 to 4 in the nation. It's always been in the top 3, but Georgia's pushing it hard now. So California would have to distribute the talent. Basically, there are the San Diego states of the world, but basically USC, UCLA, Stanford, and Cal. But who's going to get most of those players? USC is going to get probably 75% of the top 50 players in the state. So they would be in good shape. USC would be in really good shape. Oregon doesn't play great high school football. Washington doesn't. Those programs would starve. Oregon, Washington, Oregon State, Washington State would be in bad shape. Boise State would be in bad shape, but then again, they're basically building a roster with 2 and 3 stars anyway. So I don't know how much that would affect them, but they are most definitely going out of state for talent because there's just not that many people in Idaho. All right. Colorado, the same thing. Actually, Colorado typically churns out like a couple guys that are really good, like at the top end, but they don't have volumes of players in Colorado. they're going to Texas and California for players. All right, let's go to Texas because we can't cover, of course, every state in the union, but Texas. So the players would have to be distributed between Texas, Texas A&M, TCU, SMU, Baylor, Texas Tech, Houston. But it would be basically a battle between mostly Texas and Texas A&M. So even though Texas, in my opinion, Texas and Florida have the best talent in the country, followed by California, and Georgia's right neck and neck with California. So Texas and Texas A&M would be in great shape, but they would have to share talent with a lot of schools. All right. Georgia, I think, would be most likely in better shape than anyone because they've got a top 3 to 4 state in the nation for high school football, and they only have to share those players with Georgia Tech. But most of those players would go to the University of Georgia. So I'm thinking Georgia's in better shape than anyone. Don't you think that if you compare, let's say, Ohio State and Alabama, meaning Ohio and Alabama, Ohio has a little bit better high school football talent, plus Ohio State doesn't have to share those players. They're not going to be going, if they have the opportunity to go to Ohio State and play college football, they're not going to be going to all those MAC schools in Ohio. Ohio has more MAC schools than the rest of the conference. But in Alabama, the Crimson Tide is going to have to share those players with Auburn. And that would probably be similar to what USC would have with the rest of California, where it'd probably be like a 70-30 split between the best players in Alabama, but they would have to be shared. So I think Georgia's in great shape. I think LSU's in pretty good shape, even though they don't have a large state population-wise. They have great football talent. And to your point, Mississippi and Louisiana are in the same boat, where the talent is extremely high for the number of people they have, but it's a very small state. They both are. Arkansas would be hurting. Nebraska would really be hurting. And again, Oregon and Washington, their top level football programs would just collapse.
Well, that is true. That is true, Mark. And going back for a second in regards to Notre Dame, do you feel that Notre Dame is is it a generational thing as far as the appreciation, the respect, as far as Notre Dame, as far as football? Or is it a matter of me just not being able to look through leprechaun glasses to see what everyone else sees about Notre Dame? Because it seems like Notre Dame, when it comes to football, wouldn't you have to be 40 plus to really appreciate the echoes of the past? Or am I wrong? Am I wrong? And everyone else is right, Mark, in reference to Notre Dame and football.
I think you're neither right nor wrong, because I, like you, don't see the cachet with Notre Dame being anywhere close to what it was 30 years ago. But it's got to be there to some extent, because otherwise there's no other tie to Notre Dame. Like, if you're a kid in the state of Alabama and you love college football and you're a really good college football player, well, your aspirations to play at Alabama or at Auburn, probably. But I don't see in the same thing in Ohio or Pennsylvania or wherever, fill in the blank. But I don't see where Notre Dame would have that geographical tie. I don't know that people in Indiana are really, plus Indiana is not a great football playing state. So Notre Dame must still have some cachet because they're still recruiting top 10 classes with high academic standards, and they're coming from somewhere. They're coming from Florida and Texas and California and the Midwest to go play at Notre Dame in the middle of Indiana for some reason. So they have some cachet that still exists with 17-year-olds.
Well, I'm still trying to see whether it's a matter of, okay, if my parent, we'll say the average high school seniors 17, 18, those rare occasions 19. And we'll say that my parent is, say, maybe 40-ish. Do I have that connection as far as with a Notre Dame scholar, not a Notre Dame scholarship, but as far as a Notre Dame diploma carry more weight than any of the aforementioned schools that I named? Or would they be on the same level? Because I'm still just trying to figure whether it's more so as in, okay, if you're 50 and up, okay, you can, if it's nothing more than watching black and white film as far as the Four Horsemen, and as far as all the different coaches that they had, and then even in the closest to the modern era as far as Lou Holtz and Tony Rice and et cetera, as far as the Catholics and convicts, games. But as far as after that, it just seemed like it's a blank page, Mark. I mean, when it comes to Notre Dame, I mean, I could possibly respect Notre Dame more, Mark, if you didn't have all these, let's see what I want to say, caveats when you deal with them. Okay, we're going to play an ACC schedule, but then, hey, we're going to have our own TV contract, as well as we're going to pick it for all intents and purposes. I wouldn't be surprised, Mark, if they sat in the back room, a cigar smoke room, and say, okay, we're only going to play these schools this year because they're going to be 7+1 schools as far as victory. And then as far as, okay, we'll play the other schools if you want to next year. I mean, what schools? I mean, I guess you could only count them on one hand as far as schools that could step into a conference or schools that are part of a conference that have their own contract, keep all their money, plus get your money. So I guess that's probably the reason why maybe I may have a little bit of a bias.
So
as
Kevin,
far as Notre Dame is concerned.
Everything that you're stating, I agree with, and I don't like it either. Not because I've got something against Notre Dame, but I don't like it for college football. I want everybody to play in a conference, just because it's better for scheduling, it's better for the organization, it's better to determine who should be in the playoffs, it's fair, all those things. So I want Notre Dame in a conference as well, but we can't fault Notre Dame. They're able to do it. It's not like they've decided everything that you just laid out and they're failing. They're succeeding. So it's not their fault. They get to do what they want. They get to keep their own TV contract, play exclusively their games without having to be swallowed up by a conference and just be one of the teams in a conference that's playing on ESPN, ABC, Fox, CBS, whatever the conference states, and have to play in a conference. They get everything and have been able to operate exactly as you just laid out and still be Notre Dame and still be pretty damn successful. So I'm not blaming them. I'm blaming the ACC.
It may have been a roundaway mark. I wasn't blaming them either. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just more so this year than in previous years, just blown away that you can pretty much, put out there. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm not going to do. Take it or leave it. And it's not as though the ACC needed Notre Dame. I mean, they could have gone on. I mean, it was more so of all years, the ACC needed. Notre Dame needed the ACC.
Oh,
because
yeah,
they would have been independent this year. Well, I'm
the ACC could certainly use Notre Dame. I don't say they need them, but Notre Dame would be a bigger boost to the ACC than the ACC being a boost to Notre Dame football. Notre Dame doesn't need the ACC in football. The ACC could definitely use Notre Dame in football to boost its reputation, its geography, its brand, its image, its awareness. Because the ACC, look at the ACC right now, minus Notre Dame. Clemson's got a clear path to the championship. Everybody knows it. It's almost a joke that they play a season because Clemson's just going to march down the schedule and go to the championship game and win by 4 touchdowns, and they're going to be in the playoff. And the rest of the conference is a bunch of Wake Forest and Louisville's going 7-5. That's what it is right now. North Carolina could change that. Miami could potentially change that. Florida State has been that other team previously. But right now, the ACC, and for the past 3 to 4 years, has been that Clemson, period. Nothing else. I'm holding my tongue to not spit out the word garbage, because it's not garbage, but it's a bunch of top 30 to 40 teams in the country. They're almost all the same team. Take out the couple worst teams in the ACC and take out Clemson, and everybody else is pretty much the same football team. And now, again, Mac Brown's doing something at North Carolina. We'll see how it turns out. But over the past few years, you can throw, and this is one of the reasons why in the Coastal Division, a different team won the division for 7 consecutive years. They all shared the division. All 7 teams won the division, almost like it was ordered on a menu. Like, you win this year, you win that, and we're going to share it for the next 7 years. That sounds good. That sounds like parity, but it just basically means they're all a bunch of 7-5 teams. And so that's what they got. Just go down the list: Pitt, Wake Forest, Syracuse, Miami, North Carolina. And I know that those 2 teams will resonate with a few people out there that'll say, Mark, well, they're better. Well, not based on what they've played on the field. Yeah, they have the potential to be better. And Mac Brown's got North Carolina in a position to where they should be better, but they haven't been. Georgia Tech, you can go on down the list. They've all been the same football program. Boston College, they're all going 7-5 every year, pretty much. And they're the top 30 to 50 teams in the country. They're smashed right in there, and there's nobody else in Clemson.
Well, that's a sad commentary, Mark, because as we've spoke about, had the opportunity to converse about it before, and that is, until you really, not say really, but until you're willing to make an investment in football and realizing that football is your cash cow as well as the other D1 schools, you're gonna, what's the old saying? You get what you pay for. And if 7 + 1 is okay with you, then okay, continue doing it that way. But you look at the schools that are in the ACC, for example, all of them are in, as far as geography wise, that hey, they should be able to keep, in some respects, 30 to 40% of their kids at home. But the one question I would have in reference to North Carolina is, I think the one thing that's really not spoken about in comparing North Carolina to, say, for instance, Alabama, and the only comparison I would use as far as the birth certificate, is that when it comes to Mac Brown and Saban, if I'm not mistaken, are the same age. So time is, really in both cases, not on both of their sides. So
I posted a video, and I'm going to do the same thing here in the next few weeks, where I'm going to rank all the coaches in every conference. And I did this just at the time that Mac Brown was hired in the offseason, going into the next football season. And I ranked Mac Brown as the second best coach in the ACC. And Kevin, you would not believe how much ridicule I took from people calling me every name in the book and how stupid and what an idiot I am, because he should have been whatever, 7th or 8th.
Wow.
Just because he hadn't coached for 5 years. And I took that into consideration too. I thought, yeah, he could be in over his head. He could be outdated. The games passed him by, all those things. But I thought he was smart enough to know that, and to know that he needed to surround himself with football minds that are updated, and he would be a CEO. And that's exactly what he's done. And he's played to his strengths. He's recruiting like a madman, and he's handshaking everybody in state and building a football program. And he's brought in great coordinators to work the offense and the defense.
Well, Mark, briefly wanted to share this, and that is in regards to what you just stated. For someone to come at you as far as with the sharp knives, as far as on that particular coach, if you wanted to just hit them with a quick retort, and the retort would just be simply this: it would be safe to say that Mac Brown will be there in 4 to 5 years, but all the coaches that they had ahead of Mac Brown won't be there in 4 to 5 years. And even I would even go as far as saying some of those coaches that they want to put, other than Dabo, will not be there in 3 years. And if you want to say, for instance, Bartek, will Fuentes be there in 3 years? As far as Pitt, I don't even show you just how long it's been since I've kept up with Pitt, or excuse me, because Mark may don't want us to call them Pitt, the University of Pittsburgh. Will the University of Pittsburgh's present coach be there in 3 years? And I mean, you can go probably about maybe a half a dozen schools in the conference that it's safe to say coach won't be there in 3 years. Because I think that 7-1, or I'll take that back. In some of their cases, 7+1 would be good. But I'm thinking over the next 3 years, some of those aforementioned schools at best might be 6+1 or 5+1. So.
All right, Kevin, I'm going to take some more of these calls. I appreciate you calling in. You always have a very insightful question that makes me think. That's for sure.
Well, again, thanks, Mark, for indulging me. Hey, take care and have a great weekend now.
Absolutely. You too.
Hey, thank you.
All right, let's get to our next caller. Appreciate you guys' patience. And I'm going to point out Falcon ERX for two things here. Appreciate the contribution and the super sticker for one. Number two, for saying that you love Mark Rogers TV, because we just talk college football all the time. We hope we do it in a way that's entertaining and also informative and educational and all those things. And we want to bring across the best discussion, debate, and analysis anywhere. And number three, I was kind of curious to know where you're from. And you said Pittsburgh. So you chose the Steelers as your favorite team. Makes total sense, of course. But you went away from Penn State and Pitt all the way to Michigan. Okay. All right. Next up, who do we have here? This person has not identified themselves, but we'll take the call here and we'll hope for the best. Who's on the line with the voice of college football?
Is this Mark Rogers, the voice of college football?
Absolutely it is. And this would be the person who says, I've never touched our truck, I swear to God. That's what it says, our truck, but I'm thinking that would be Howard's Rock, correct?
I have never touched Howard's Rock, I swear to God.
Well, the voice recognition came out with a message that sent me, I've never touched our truck, I swear to God.
Right. Yeah. Just in case your truck is missing.
Yeah, you gotta drive the truck without touching it, I guess.
Like, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. Anyway, Mark, come on. We're all having a hellish existence. That what happened today. Tell me about Ohio State versus Oral Roberts. Come on, give me the breakdown.
The breakdown. Here's the
we
breakdown.
We don't even talk about basketball on this channel, but this is special. Come on, break it down for me.
I said that right out of the gate. I said I have never allowed anybody to talk college basketball on this channel because it's a college football channel, and even if it's the national championship game in college basketball, we're talking spring practice with Iowa State or whoever. But hey,
he hates basketball, but it's different. Today is special. Let's go ahead and hear it. Let's hear it. What happened?
I used to like basketball. I just never watch it anymore. I'm going to say that Oral Roberts scored more points than Ohio State. That's how they won. I do know that Ohio State only hit 50% from the free throw line. I'll throw in that stat.
When Florida beat VCU or VTU or whoever they are, Virginia, I was like, oh my God, we got to play Ohio State. And then I saw the score like an hour later. I'm like, are you serious? Really? It's Oral Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you.
I was asking the live chat how many people actually knew who Oral Roberts was or is. I don't know if he's passed away or not. I believe he has.
Hey, I don't mean to be rude or anything, right? But my aunt was worth like $750,000. She gave all her money to Oral Roberts University, and I live on veterans benefits and welfare. Isn't that funny? I come from rich people. They all gave their money to Jimmy Swaggart and Tammy and Jim and Oral, and I mean, literally, they were good Christian boys and girls. They just gave my fortune away, millions and millions of dollars. No, don't go down that road.
Yes,
now the Gators are about to pay back for everything they ever did to me. We're about to beat them 100-0.
100-0.
Take all your money and bet on Florida.
Okay. We'll send that message out to everyone. Everybody on the line right now, put all your money on Florida. They'll cover the spread
They stole my
easily.
family inheritance. We're about to get even. Yeah. You can't do that. You can't just steal people's money like that. Whatever. I've seen some crazy shit in my life, but I can't believe I'm playing Oral Roberts, you know?
Did you want to play Oral Roberts
I was just
or Ohio State?
sure Ohio State was going to beat us by 30 points, and now I'm like, Oral Roberts? Are you serious?
Well, they must be able to play some hoops.
We should do this with football, man. Figure this out. Let's just do a 64-team playoff starting at the first game of the year, you know?
That Oral Roberts team, they evidently took your aunt's money and they put it to good use.
Yes, they did. They bought several players. I know who they are. But that's not what she intended. She was trying to save people's souls. Instead, they put it all into basketball. But don't worry. We're going to get even next weekend. I can't wait.
Well,
how many days?
If Ohio State's football team ever plays Oral Roberts in football, my money's on the Buckeyes. I think they can squeeze that one out.
I don't think Oral Roberts has a football team.
Yeah, that was kind of the point of the comment. But yeah, I don't think they field a football team there. All right, George. Anything else?
With a name like Oral. No. God damn, I love you guys.
Okay.
Big shout out to the chat section. Those people are crazy, Mark. You got to keep an eye on them.
No, we let Cheryl do that all by herself.
Right.
Which
right,
reminds me, yes, Cheryl needs some help in the live chat here. We need some other moderators. We've got 8 other moderators, but they don't do anything. So we need other active moderators. So if you would like to be moderator, hit me up and help out Cheryl. Please do.
I can't moderator, or I will put people in timeout for no reason and charge them $5 and make them make a super chat so they get back in.
Charge them $5. We'll split it, George. You can rack those up.
We'll let you back in after 300 seconds. If you make a super chat and say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I won't do it again," I'll let you back in. That's how I'd run that game. God damn! Don't make me a moderator. I'll fuck it all up.
All right, George.
I mean, mess it all up.
You have a good night.
You too. Bye, guys.
I'll get the mouse going here. I believe we've got Dominic on the line. Dominic is a fan of, let's see, I think the list includes Georgia football, Alabama basketball, Washington Nationals baseball, New York Mets baseball, and I believe I've seen the New York Rangers or Islanders represented as well by Dominic. So we'll see what Dominic has going on tonight. Hello, Dominic. How you doing tonight?
Doing good, Mark. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. What's going on?
Nothing much, really. I'm in the 2021 March Madness bracket challenge right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And man, what an upset in that Ohio State Oral Roberts game. Am I right?
Yeah. 2-15 game. Sure.
Now that's probably the biggest upset by far this year in March Madness. But anyway, I wanted to get into some spring practice a little bit for Alabama.
Okay.
In football.
All right.
So their new quarterback, Bryce Young, has he thrown any interceptions in spring practice, or has it not started yet for Bama?
I did know a date at one point for Alabama spring practice. They have either just started or are about to start. Let's see. Today's the 19th. They should have started this week, I believe.
Okay.
We typically don't get statistics from spring practice. So we don't know if Bryce Young has thrown an interception.
I Well, anyway, I figured I'd come on and talk about the March Madness that just started today.
All right. We are open to talk some basketball tonight for as much as I don't want to. Go right ahead. What do you got for us?
Okay, so I think my home state, Virginia, can't win it all. What do you think?
What do I think?
Who you got winning it all this year? Yeah, who do you got winning it all this year for March Madness?
I filled out a bracket. I don't even know who I put. I just filled out a bracket because we've got our guy NCIS Fanatic 21 who started a Voice of College Football tournament challenge, and so I thought I should, as the leader of the whole deal, should fill out a bracket. That's the first bracket I've filled out probably in almost 10 years. It's been a long time since I filled out a bracket, but I would think that Virginia definitely has a shot because Ralph Sampson is the best center in college basketball.
Absolutely. Well, we currently have a game going on right now, that being Purdue and North Texas.
Yes. It's a close one.
Yeah, close one indeed. I've got Purdue winning that one.
Yeah, they're sure supposed to. They're a 2 seed against the 15. That could be another Big Ten loss as a 2 seed. That would be devastating for the Big Ten.
Purdue's actually number 4.
Are they a 4 seed? I'm sorry, 4-13. I was thinking of Iowa is the other 2 seed from the Big Ten. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you got some other calls coming in, so I'm going to let you get to that. I just want to call in.
Thanks, Dominic. Have a good night. Enjoy the games.
All right. You too, Mark.
All right. So we've heard from Dominic on Virginia basketball, Alabama football, and Purdue and North Texas, which is coming down to the final seconds here. And I believe we've got a tie game, so we could go to overtime. I believe that's what that is. All right. I would have been heavily invested in this 15 or 20 or 25 or 30 years ago, dating myself. We got the Rod Favre on the line. Not too happy about any college basketball talk, I'm sure, but we'll see what Rod's got to say about, looks like Notre Dame football. Rod, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm good. What's going on?
You know, first of all, I just want to agree with you. Ralph Sampson is by far the best basketball player in college basketball right now, but they better watch out when they play Chaminade, I'm just saying.
Yes.
So anyway, I got to admit, last night, that guy from Notre Dame really set me off so bad that I'm defending Michigan. That's how angry that guy made me when he said, I didn't care. He doesn't care about the Michigan series. He didn't think Notre Dame needed to be in the Big Ten. So I did some data today. Really looking forward to having this. Was really hoping you were going to have a show today. So I wrote down some data here. So you ready?
I'm ready. Fire.
All right. So Michigan leads all time 20-17 and one tie. When he said that they taught Michigan how to play football, Michigan. Now, granted, this was pre-World War I. Like pre-World War II, pre-World War I. Michigan still won the first 4 meetings that they ever played. Notre Dame did not win until I believe like 1943 or something like that. I didn't write that one down. Since 2006, they have lost 7 times. Notre Dame has lost 7 times to Michigan since 2006, and I think you remember that game when in 2006, it was supposed to be Ohio State Notre Dame rematch for the national title that year. Some people even argued Notre Dame should have been number 1 over Ohio State. Michigan went to South Bend and just boat raced them.
Yep.
That was the game Mario Manningham just had a field day. So they've lost 7 times to Michigan since then. The average margin of victory that they have lost to Michigan this century, they played since 2002, and they've played 15 times since then. Michigan's average margin of victory is 19.5 points. When Notre Dame wins, It's an 11.5-point margin of victory. They are 7-8. Notre Dame is 7-8 against Michigan this century. They are now, as far as going back to the Big Ten overall, who else would they compete against? They are 8-8 since 2000 against Michigan State. Now, and since 2000, from 97 to 2001, Michigan State beat Notre Dame 5 straight years. They have lost 3 of the last 5 to Penn State, and they have lost 4 in a row to Ohio State. Now, granted, they have not. They play Wisconsin this year. They have not played since 1962. But I forgot to write that down. The record between Wisconsin and Michigan, Notre Dame is not very far. I think Notre Dame only leads by like 4 or 5 games. So everyone else, they only really have a dominant all-time record against Northwestern, Purdue, and Indiana and Minnesota. They have a losing record against Nebraska. And it's going to be kind of a toss-up between. I'm sure Notre Dame would probably be favored against Wisconsin this year, but probably not by much. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I would think they'd be a 4 to 6 point favorite, something in that range. We'll see once we get there. Obviously,
that's where I was going to be in.
And obviously, the Penn State series would be difficult for them as well, and has been in the past.
Exactly. So, right. Yeah. So they are 9-1 all time against Penn State. So I don't know where that guy gets off trying to say, they don't need the Big Ten, and the ways that it would benefit Notre Dame more being in the ACC. He's part true, because they would not win in the Big Ten. They would lose 2 games a year, regardless if they were in the East or the West. They would lose 2 games a year at minimum in the Big Ten, because they would probably likely have that crossover game if they were being in the West. They would likely have the crossover rivalry game with Michigan or Michigan. My guess, I'm just going to make an assumption, it would probably be Michigan, and then they're pretty even with Wisconsin right now in terms of their program status. And then when they would occasionally play Ohio State, they play twice in the next 2 years. Ohio State would clearly be favored against Notre Dame. I just don't see the benefit of being in the ACC for Notre Dame, and it kind of displayed some arrogance, because the guy said, being in the ACC kind of helps them recruit in that Southeast region, in the Carolina region, Virginia, the Georgias, and all that. I adamantly disagree with that, because those Southeastern kids don't care about Notre Dame like the kids, like Kevin's point. If you're 40 and younger, Notre Dame doesn't appeal like it did unless you're 40 and over. You don't remember those glory days. And plus, again, the SEC and those Southeastern region programs, ACC and SEC, have risen so much in the last 25 years. Again, Notre Dame just doesn't have that appeal that it once did. I'm not knocking the program. It's still a great program, still a prestigious program, but they don't have that unique prestige like they once had. So I just don't see Notre Dame out recruiting Alabama, Clemson, LSU, Georgia, Florida. I mean, rarely, how often do they beat out those programs for players? So to me, it was just kind of a sense of they know they won't compete in the Big Ten. Again, 29-23 since 2000 against Big Ten teams. So that's what I got. What are your thoughts? Oh, and by the way, Notre Dame was 1-2. They were all, sorry to cut you off. I got one more stack here. They were 1-2 against Rich Rod teams. So what are they talking about? So that's why the run is, we don't care about the rivalry, but that's garbage. I mean, they know they can't beat Michigan.
Yeah, they had a nice season in 2019. They finished 11-2 and top 10 in the country, but they went to Ann Arbor and got ambushed 45-14.
Yes,
that's the last Notre Dame game against the Big Ten. So my thoughts about Notre Dame joining the Big Ten, and again, I speak strictly from a football standpoint. I'm not looking at the other sports, even though Notre Dame would be a great fit in men's college basketball traditionally against the Big Ten. There's no question geographically. So check that box. It's not even an argument. Of course, they're right smack dab in the middle of Indiana. They're in Big Ten country. Their football tradition is more closely tied to the Big Ten than any conference by far. They don't have conference affiliation. They don't have any ties to the ACC. None of those schools and Notre Dame have any kind of history. Pitt, a little bit. Outside of that, they don't. The Miami, that was a national series there for a few years just because they were both on top of their game late in the 80s. But basically any connection that people make, Notre Dame, Miami, we would love to see them play, is all based on about 2 to 3 games. It's all based on basically 2 games played in the late 80s. Other than that, they've not played significant games against each other. They played 2 games that decided which team would go to a national championship in both 1988 and 89. Other than that, there's no significance to Miami and Notre Dame. None. Whereas, as you outlined, Notre Dame has strong ties to 3 teams in particular in the Big Ten. Michigan, Notre Dame. I did not agree with Brian. I didn't get into it with him. I just let him go on this point about, I don't know. And Nathan made the same comment about having more attachment to the Purdue and Michigan State series than Michigan. But growing up as a college football fan that basically disliked both of them and hated Michigan, I thought that was a great game. That was always a must-see game for me. I wanted to see Michigan Notre Dame play, and they did play every year. And that was one of the games I wanted to see more than any game on the schedule outside of Ohio State playing. USC Notre Dame, Michigan Notre Dame, Auburn, Alabama. Yes, Michigan Notre Dame was right near the top of the list every year. Always wanted to see them play.
My first game I remember, sorry to cut you off. My first game I ever remember watching was the Rocket Ishmael game, the Michigan Notre Dame game when he returned those 2 kickoffs. So, I mean, I went of my own way to watch because, especially here in the Midwest, that's a huge game. That's a huge game, and it's so good for the sport. Those are 2 blue bloods going at it, and it's just like, to me, the way he was just saying that they're running. I remember Brady Hoke called him out when they canceled. He goes, "Yeah, it was the series that they're chickening out of." And Bo Schembech was famous quote, "To hell with Notre Dame." You know what I mean? So it's just really sad to see them kind of stoop to that level and use such weak excuses, to avoid playing the Big Ten. So I finally found those other records. So they're 56-25-2 against Purdue, 36-28-1 against Michigan State. So only an 8-game lead, 37-9 against Northwestern, 17-20-1 against Michigan, 22-3 against Indiana, 13-8-3 against Iowa, 9-9-1 against Penn State, 8-6-2 against Wisconsin, 7-8-1 against Nebraska, 10-0-1 against Illinois, 2-4 against Ohio State. They're 5-0 against Rutgers, 4-0-1 against Minnesota, and they're 2-0 against Maryland. So I mean, so pretty much all like the big dogs there in the Big Ten. If they're not losing, it's close. So to me, I don't know. I just don't think they really have that unique prestige anymore. They're still great. They're still a great brand. They're still a huge name. I think very highly of Brian Kelly. I think he's done a phenomenal job. That is one of the toughest places to coach, to recruit, and to win at, because they have such the slimmest margin for error without having a conference championship game. So I think Brian Kelly has done a phenomenal job. But yet when I hear these excuses, it's so infuriating, and it kind of creates this stigma and animosity towards the program that is more on a national landscape. And I think, it would, I'm sorry, I'm going to disagree with the guy. I think they would benefit more being in the Big Ten than being in the ACC. But then again, of course, like you are, I'm thinking strictly from a football standpoint.
Yeah, I don't care about the other sports. I could care less. I only care about football. And academically, he had an explanation that I can't refute because I don't, again, know. I've kept up with the academic standards and so forth in the past, but currently I'm not up to date on what would be the better fit. But the Big Ten is arguably, along with the Pac-12, if you take the entire collection of schools, the top ranked academic conference out of the Power Five. So I would think Notre Dame would fit in with Michigan, Ohio State, Northwestern, and other schools that have a quality reputation.
Absolutely.
But I'm seeing Michigan's won 7 of the last 11 games. I'm looking at the series right here.
And look at the margin of victory there. I mean, again, since 2006. It was 16, almost 17 points margin of victory since 2006, and since 2002, Michigan's average margin of victory is 19.5 points. And again, they lost to some bad Rich Rod teams. They lost to some bad Michigan teams. It was just kind of but then it was also a stretch there where like it seemed like the road team was always winning. But then, that kind of ended, when, was it 2018 when they, was the first game of the year and they lost. Michigan just played awful. I think their only touchdown was a kick return. But then, like you said, in 2019, Michigan got the payback and they beat a much better Notre Dame team. That game shocked me. I thought Notre Dame was going to win that game because I just didn't think Michigan had it in them. So, again, man, that just really did not sit well with me last night to a point where that guy made me defend Michigan football, and that's what made me even angrier.
Well, Rod, I'll say it this way, and then I'll move on to some other calls. Basically, that again, from a football standpoint, from a geographic standpoint, there's no question that Notre Dame is best fit in the Big Ten. I don't fault Notre Dame for any of this, though. They make money. They recruit top 10 teams. They produce top 10 teams. They make a lot of money in television. They're exclusive. They keep their brand, their image. They keep their unique quality of the program being separate from anyone else. And so I don't fault them for holding on to that. I think that's why there needs to be unification of college football to force them to go into a conference or be cast off as completely irrelevant. So I don't blame Notre Dame whatsoever.
I get it too. I mean, from a business or a logical adult standpoint, absolutely bad. The selfish fan in me, just like I hate the one and done system in basketball, the selfish fan in me hates it. But the logical adult understands why the players leave. So, all right, Mark, I know you got other callers, so I'm going to let you go.
Thanks, Rod. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
All right. I want to remind everyone that you can join me on Patreon. It's only 16 cents per day, $5 per month, exclusive live streams, watch parties, and you do it basically to support the channel. But I do want to make it worth your while as well. But do it to support the channel. Again, 16 cents per day, $5 per month. Join us on Patreon. Just go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, or grab the link down in the description section of any of the videos. And as George likes to say, shop Amazon. Everybody shops Amazon. When I say everybody, of course, I don't mean everybody, but enough people, like 150 million people in this country, that when you do shop Amazon, which is, I got to think, a collection of 3,000 people on average watch my videos, that if those people would shop Amazon, the 1,500 out of the 3,000, if they use the link in the description section of the videos, then they would help us build the channel. Same shopping experience. Doesn't cost you a dime. And again, you can contribute to the Voice of College Football right here on the Super Chat or on Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV. As somebody was urging me the other night, they said, Mark, you don't let us know enough. I don't think you make it clear enough to us where we can contribute. So I will do a better job of pointing that out, believe me, in the future. All right, we got David Gridshield on the line to discuss, thank God, college football. David, how are we doing tonight?
Yes. Well, after this Ohio State game, I mean, what in the name of Grady McKean, Curtis Wilson, and Jay Burson happened today,
Pretty
Mark
good.
Rogers? It was, yeah. Well, I wanted to reference college basketball players at Ohio State that you remember following.
I certainly do.
I wanted to throw out some names that you probably remember. So I'm dating myself as well. So,
yeah,
although you got me by a couple years.
You went to the early to mid 80s, and then Jay Burson a little bit later than that, 87, 88 in that range. Jay Burson.
Right.
I remember the Dick Vitale reference at one point. He made some kind of comment about this. He looks like the kid that, looks like the paper boy that's on the route in my neighborhood or something like that. Jay Burson. Yeah. Aaron Kraft being the modern day version of Jay Burson.
Yep.
To a certain extent, even though they were much different players, but they looked like the same guy, but they were much different players in terms of their skill sets.
Yeah, when I saw Eric Kraft play, that was the first guy I thought of was Jay Burson, actually.
Although Kraft was arguably the best defensive guard in the country, and Burson was a scorer.
Right, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, you know what I was reminded of, just to kind of reference college football again, Mark, get back to obviously the point of the conversation, is today, you know, I couldn't imagine Ohio State in football losing to a team like this. I mean, they could come out and turn the ball over 4 or 5 times in football, and the talent disparity in the end would win out, and they would still beat a team like this comfortably. You know, I mean, more than likely. I mean, I know Ohio State has gotten upset, and people can talk about Iowa and Purdue, and I know that, but I'm just talking a team like at this level. I mean, because, you know, losing to, like, I could never see Ohio State in football losing to a MAC school. They never had. Although they've had some close calls against MAC schools. I remember, what was it, 03, Bowling Green played them to a fairly close game. You remember that one, Mark?
24-17, if I remember correctly. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, Tressel played everybody to a close game. I mean, whether you're good, bad, or upside down, Tressel was playing a close game.
It was either the week before that game or the week after they had a tussle with San Diego State under Tressel.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. The only score was a defensive touchdown in that game. I remember that.
They also had a tussle with Bowling Green, and I remember this because this was one of the few Ohio State games in the history of the program since I've been a fan that I missed the game because I was on my honeymoon. But they were playing Bowling Green in 1992, and they only won that game 14-6.
That's right. That's right. They had a close game with Jeff Brom's Louisville team that year. That was the legend of Kirk Herbstreit at quarterback.
That I rarely tie these to personal experiences, but while I'm on that same subject, that was actually the day of my wedding, which when we found out when the game was scheduled, which it was a noon game, we had enough time to change our ceremony from noon to 4 p.m.
Oh, there you go. You moved it around for the Ohio State game.
That's how big of an Ohio State fan I was at the time. Yes.
Yeah.
We moved the ceremony
I remember
to 4 p.m.
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine actually scheduled his wedding on the bye week for Ohio State one year and intentionally did it that way.
There you go.
So,
I don't know that there were bye weeks back in those days. There weren't a whole lot of bye weeks growing up.
Well, I think they started like early 2000s. I think 03, 04, somewhere in that time frame. I thought there were bye weeks.
Yeah, but I'm going back to 92.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got me by a couple of years, Mark. So that's what I was saying.
I do. I'm up there. I'm getting up there.
So that's what I was saying. A friend of mine had gotten married. It was like early 2000s, and he had moved his to where the bye week was. So that's why I kind of was trying to relate to you from that perspective. So I was going to bring up Rob brought up some interesting points. I was going to touch on the Notre Dame situation because I listened to your call in last night. I've often said I would love to see Notre Dame join the Big Ten. I don't think it's ever going to happen for the financial reasons that you talked about, but I certainly, and I'm all for the things that would strengthen the Big Ten. I remember when Penn State joined in '93, and there were a lot. I mean, you remember when it happened, Mark? There was a lot of people that were kind of mixed about that at a period of time, and I thought it was like going to be I thought it was going to be incredible for the Big Ten, and it really did give the Big Ten a shot in the arm. Although I think that was at a time where Penn State was really. I mean, you'd say Penn State in 92, 93, right in that time frame was what, a top 5, 10 program?
Sure, they were.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and I think that, where would you rate Notre Dame right now? If they're a top 10 program, they're probably like 9 or 10, though, wouldn't you say?
Man, that sounds like a good video project to rank the programs 1 through 130 or something like that. Anyway, Ohio State's better. Clemson's better. Alabama's better. Georgia's better. Oklahoma's better.
Oklahoma's better. Yeah.
Then after that, I'm going to say, I I tend to continue to discard 2020 to a certain extent, David. And so I'm going to put Penn State, Michigan, LSU, maybe Florida, Oregon on the same tier.
Okay. All right. I could follow that. Yeah, I could see that. That's close. See, I've often said I think it's a debate between Penn State and Notre Dame as far as like who's really accomplished anything recently, as far as who's the second best Midwestern program. Is that, I mean, because to be fair, is that kind of your debate between the two, or do you put Penn State slightly ahead of Notre Dame then, huh?
The last time that Notre Dame seriously contended for a national championship would have been 1993. Of course, they won one in 88. It could be argued, as I have, that they could have been awarded the 93 championship. And Penn State has since then. They haven't won one, but they've, they had 2005. They had 2008. They had a Rose Bowl run. Yeah, it's close. It's arguable, but I guarantee that Penn State has a better record since Lou Holtz walked off the field at Notre Dame. I guarantee Penn State's record is somewhat better.
Right. Well, to be honest with you, Mark, I mean, in the BCS era, the only Midwestern program other than Ohio State to play for a national title is Notre Dame, right?
Yeah. Yeah, twice.
So
to a certain extent, play for the national title in 2012 and be in the playoff in 18. Yes. And in 20. So you're tipping my argument back on me, which I get it. It makes sense that Notre Dame has at least reached the pinnacle. I think Penn State's been more consistent, but yeah, Notre Dame under Kelly here, it's been 3 times in the last 9 football seasons that they've made it to the top.
Right. Well, and that's my point. If they're a top 10 program, I'd say they're 9 or 10. Just like the same thing about Penn State. If they're a top 10 program, they're 9 or 10.
Yeah.
So, that's just my own personal view. Now, I think it would overall help the conference. I mean, it would add at least a fairly solid program to the conference. And I'm all about strengthening the Big Ten and making it stronger, as I've mentioned to you many times. And, I think it would help. It would be interesting to see what division they would be on which side. Do you think they'd be on Wisconsin's side then, Mark?
Yeah, I think you need to balance out I think it fortunately would make sense geographically. They could go either way geographically. It's almost like the Indiana-Purdue split, East and West. And they're right there in Indiana, so you can go either way with that. But of course, you then have 15 teams in the conference. So I don't know what they would do about that, but
kick Rutgers out, Mark.
Kick them out. Exactly. So then you would have to you just move Purdue to the east and let them play Indiana, and you send Notre Dame to the west, and I think that would be phenomenal. I would love to see Notre Dame, not just for the Michigan series and for Michigan State and Purdue, but I'd love to see Notre Dame play Iowa. I'd love to see them play the other top-notch teams in the Big Ten. Of course, they're playing Wisconsin this year, but to play them on a nearly annual basis would be phenomenal.
Right. Well, you remember your Notre Dame guy had said, well, what does moving Notre Dame to the Big Ten do as far as the recruiting goes? And because, he was making the case, I believe his comment, Mark, was that, they already recruit the Midwest and all that. And he was making the case about moving to the ACC. Well, first of all, no matter what conference you're in, if your team is good enough, and Ohio State is proving this now, you can go anywhere all over the country to get talent, or you should be able to. I mean, if you're a good enough program and you're putting players into the NFL, so, I mean, we're not as regionalized, as you can tell with recruiting, as we used to be, as far as that goes. Because as I say, Alabama's got great high school football, but Nick Saban's just not recruiting the state of Alabama. There's really good high school football in South Carolina, but Dabo Swinney is just not recruiting the state of South Carolina. So, and I've said this about the state of Ohio before. So, I mean, my point was, if Notre Dame came, and I would say this to him, if they came to the Big Ten and they were a good enough program and they're making the playoff or they're winning the conference, you know, then that means they're obviously recruiting really good players, sending players to the NFL, and then the talent will follow from there. So I don't really understand his point as far as that goes. Did you get that?
What about the advantage of going to the ACC in terms of recruiting?
Versus the two. I mean, yeah, in terms of him making the point about being in one conference versus the other and ability to recruit.
Well, if you look at the entirety of the ACC, it includes Florida, it includes Georgia technically, because you've got three schools in those two states. So I get it. I think any school, this could be measured and proven, still pulls in, even though it's a nationwide sport unlike at any other time, and especially with the internet,
right,
that you still pull in most of your recruits from the surrounding areas. Therefore, if you're Notre Dame, the surrounding areas then become your opponents. He's making that connection, and you have ties to playing Miami and Florida State and Clemson and all those teams on a regular basis. I think there's some reason to that.
I mean, I know where he's coming from, Mark. My point is that if you're winning and you're producing players to the NFL, the recruits will come. I would say no matter what conference you play in. So, I mean, you can still be in, like even teams in the ACC go out and recruit California. Even teams in the SEC go out and recruit California, or they recruit out on the West Coast, or sometimes we'll recruit in the East Coast and the Midwest. So, and I get where you're coming from as far as, majority, but I don't know how much that would change ACC versus Big Ten anyway, because they're still located in the Midwest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think it would help the conference. I would like to see them join the Big Ten. But your point about the financial dollars, I don't think it's ever going to happen, right?
I don't think so. And they're tied to the ACC, and that would be the logical step that they would make if they're going to join a conference. Not completely uproot.
Yeah, if they're playing every other sport in that conference, why wouldn't they go there if they're going to a conference, right?
Yeah, I don't see this Big Ten Notre Dame marriage happening for as much as I would like to see it as well. All right, David.
Hey, last thing real quick, Mark. I just want to get this in. You posted something about suggestions for future segments.
Yes.
I guess you have a second one tonight, because I'm going to go to the one I gave you real quick, but ranking the programs in order, is probably one thing. And I threw out another one online. Have you done you do some all-time stuff. Have you done all-time greatest games in college football ever? I think that could be interesting.
Ever would be daunting. I made a list, and I can't believe that I took the time to do it, and I never produced the video, and the list is long gone. At the conclusion of 2019, I thought, okay, this is the end of a decade, and I listed out, I came up with 75 games probably, but I dwindled it down to 25, the top 25 games of the decade, but I never produced the video. Yeah.
Hey, I'd be there for it, Mark. I'm just saying, as a future reference, you'd have a viewer in me. So.
Well, I appreciate that. And I love doing those, and I love doing these disputed national championship seasons, but they just don't pull many views. So it kind of becomes a waste of time to a certain extent.
Well, you have a fan in the nostalgia in me, Mark. You take care of yourself.
Thanks a lot, Dave. Appreciate that.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, let's move it on to somebody whose mom wants to talk to me. Uh-oh, I've insulted somebody, and I'm going to get scolded by mom. and we don't want to take that any further than that comment. Sebastian's on here and says that just about every time Sebastian's able to join a call-in show, we're talking about Notre Dame moving to the Big Ten. So sounds like we need to keep talking about that. All right, let's move it on here to. This should be an interesting call. It's the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hello, it's me.
It's you. Of course, it's you.
It's me, Braden Lonham.
Who is it?
It's Braden Lonham. Don't you remember me?
I can't even. I'm sorry. Can we tone it down just a tad? I apologize. I'm not getting a clear enunciation on your name.
Okay.
One more time, please.
Okay, I'll tone it down a little bit. Hey, it's me, Braden Lonham.
All right. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
Good. Well, thanks for calling. We appreciate that.
Okay, I have some questions.
Okay.
Did you see those 3 upsets from the NCAA March Madness tonight?
I saw the scores. I wasn't watching the games themselves. I see that Purdue just lost, Ohio State lost, and somebody else lost. Tennessee lost.
Oral Roberts upset at Ohio State.
Yeah, I see that. I watched the end of the game.
Yeah. Well, you may know this. I'm an Arkansas fan.
You're a Georgia Tech fan.
Arkansas fan.
Arkansas fan. Awesome. Okay, so Arkansas won today.
Okay, so 2021, you know the schedule. You know Arkansas's 2021 schedule?
Do I know their 21 football schedule?
Yeah, but look.
I know that you're playing Texas.
You would never guess this, but the Saturday Blitz gets them going 2-10, 0-8 again.
Yeah, that seems a little strong. I get the point that they may have played over their heads last year, but at the same time, they were ripped off against Auburn, so they should have went 4-6 for sure. And they're going to have those out of conference games against Group of 5 teams to bolster the record. So don't hold me to this, but I would say Arkansas should be more in the 2-6 range in the SEC and probably go maybe 5-7.
I think they're probably in the 6-6 or 8-4 range.
8-4.
And 6-6.
Oh, somewhere between 6-6 and 8-4.
Yeah, 7-5.
That sounds a little optimistic, but I appreciate that. You're an Arkansas fan. You should be optimistic.
Yeah, that's not a bad year at all.
Oh, that'd be it.
You did 3 easy wins in the SEC.
That would be an excellent. You think that there's 3 easy wins in the SEC for Arkansas? Let's look at your schedule.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay. I'll just put Missouri as a toss-up right there.
Let's check out your schedule here.
Okay.
So I'm going to pull it up right now. You always play Missouri, of course, from the Eastern Division.
Yeah, we play Missouri every year. That ain't going to change.
Sure. So who's the other opponent from the East?
Georgia.
Oh,
at
ouch.
Georgia.
Okay. You just played them this year.
Yeah, ouch.
Okay. Well,
we probably could have gotten South Carolina or Vanderbilt.
All right. Well, you got Georgia. Well, think of it this way. When you get better, you won't have to play them. So when you're competing for a better record, hopefully in the next couple years, then you'll be playing somebody else like a Vanderbilt or Tennessee or whomever. All right. So you got out of conference.
Yeah, I think we're going to play South Carolina next year.
So you've got Rice to start the season, 1-0. Texas at home. That's winnable.
Yeah.
You could win that game. I would flip the coin on Texas's side, but that doesn't mean you can't win that game. You can win that game, especially at home. And then you got Georgia Southern.
And Georgia Southern is a dangerous team.
That's true. That's a good
but
point.
I'm going to give them I'm going to give them a win.
1-2 at the worst, most likely 2-1, possibly 3-0.
Yeah.
Then you got Texas A&M, whom you always, even when you've been bad, play well against. You always give Texas A&M a tough time.
Yeah, but I think we'll lose 37-34.
Okay, you got the score down already on the game against
and then we'll
Texas
go on
A&M.
the road and get beat by Georgia 31-17.
Okay.
And then Auburn, I don't know about that game.
You got Ole
I
Miss.
don't even know about that
You go to
game.
Ole Miss next, then Auburn.
Oh, Ole Miss. Yeah, Ole Miss and Auburn are toss-ups right there. You never know what Brian Harsin can do. Lane Kiffin and his Ole Miss team is hyping up the level.
This stretch is pretty tough when you look at Texas A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Auburn.
Yeah, Auburn, you never know what Brian Harsin can do.
Well, I think he'll be fine. But they may be down this year.
Yeah.
So you might be able to steal a win at home
Yeah,
against Auburn. Then you got this
and
win.
UAPB, that'll be an easy.
Yeah,
And Arkansas Pine Bluff, that should be an easy win.
Yeah. So how are they coming up with only 2 wins against those? I guess those are against Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Rice. Wow, that's a pretty rough forecast.
Yeah.
And then you should beat Mississippi State at
Rice did beat
home.
Marshall last year.
So I'm going to say I got 3 win and 3. Yeah, I'm going to stay with 5 and 7. But
I'm gonna. Then Mississippi State comes to town. I still think Mike Leach is in the Mississippi State Bulldogs is in rebuilding mode. So I'll give you a win there.
Okay. All right. You like 7 or 5?
And then you go on the road to face off Ole Miss. And then you go on the road to face off old LSU, which of course you'll lose that game because LSU is going to be better next year. But it'll be close though.
All right.
And then you go on the road. Of course, you get beat by Alabama like you do every year. And then you return home against Eli Drake with Missouri Tigers.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for the call. Do you have anything else to bring up?
Oh, I actually got one more thing to bring up.
Okay.
Okay, so it's Cincinnati versus Arkansas. Who would you pick in that game?
Cincinnati. You're talking about the teams that just left the field in 2020. Those 2 teams, not 2021, the 2020 Cincinnati Bearcats against Arkansas.
Oh, I forgot to mention, we're going to play Cincinnati next year. 2022.
Okay. There'll be 2 completely different teams at that point. Okay. But the 2020 version of those 2 teams, I like Cincinnati to win that game by 10 points to 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, I can go with that. All right, Mark Rogers. Well, I'm glad you called me. And I'll be getting off now. See you, buddy.
I'm glad I called you as well. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
See you, buddy.
Have a good one. All right. We had our Arkansas fan. Still can't make out the name. All right. Forrest Gump, I got an idea for Mark Rogers TV show. All right. This should be interesting. Here we go. Welcome to the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Did you just give me a different name, Mark?
I just read the screen. It actually, I would have gone with Forrest Gump, but I just breezed by it. It actually says Fresno Gump, so you become a Fresno State Bulldog fan, I guess. Fresno Gump. Yeah, the caller recognition isn't the best, so I should have been able to figure that out, but I just was moving along there and.
Well, it's not tailored to try and interpret people from the South, apparently.
Anyway, I would always be able to recognize this voice, though. So,
have you ever looked into being able to have like more than one person on, like at a time?
I do that all the time.
Not for your call-in shows, though. We've only been able to just talk to you.
Oh, you're talking about for a call-in show, have like 4 of you come on at the same time?
Or 2 or 3, just maybe a max of 4.
So you're talking about come on screen.
If you could do that, you could probably do it that way, so you wouldn't have to like buy extra phone lines. to have like I've seen other shows where they have like a link or some sort of app or something where someone who wants to call in can click it, and then it kind of like can put them on their screen during the live show, and they can have up to like 4, and it splits the screen between all of them. So and they can all talk to each other like at the same time, and each kind of rotates them in and out.
Sure. So basically, you're taking my Ohio State, Miami, Florida State type shows, and I would send those link out. I guess I would make that link available to everybody, and whomever came in first, and I would have, let's say, 3 spots, and I would just let you guys in, and then I would rotate those spots. I've actually done that on Patreon a number of times.
Okay.
So I did come up with the idea to a certain extent, but I haven't done it here.
Okay. Then I should know. If that's something you just do on Patreon, that's cool. I just had an idea. So I just didn't know if you had thought of that before.
Oh, I could bring it here. I could think about it. So sometimes I don't know if I can, handle the wealth of knowledge that comes on here in just one phone call. That I can multiply that by 3 might be too much to handle.
The wealth of
some of the insight that I take during some of these phone calls, to multiply that by 3, I think it would be quite overwhelming.
Especially when Dominic's online.
I'm not naming any names. I'm just saying you've heard the phone calls. So they range from 0 to 10.
Well, just like you said one time after a nameless caller, you just got to put a disclaimer: functional brainwaves required before clicking the link.
Yeah, and if I go with your scenario, I can always kick anybody out at any time, just like I can hang up with anyone. So don't want to do that. I want to be a kind host, and certainly don't want to piss off my viewers who are here to watch the show and take part.
All right, man. Anyway, that's all I got.
All right, Reasonable Gump.
I don't got any wisdom for you tonight.
Okay, well, we'll save that for the next time.
All right.
Have a great weekend. All right. These calls sometimes just don't drop quick enough. All right, folks. We've talked basketball. We've talked football, fortunately. And I will see all of you very soon. At the very least, that will be noon on Monday over on Pigskin Pete's channel. Noon on Monday for our college football coast to coast show. And unless I decide to do something over the weekend, we'll see. But these are sparsely viewed, at least in the live show. And I understand I didn't have this announced, so I can't complain. Did not announce this. Had a 6 o'clock window scheduled. Then that turned into a impromptu deal here. So I appreciate everyone. But obviously these do much better during the football season. And so hopefully we'll do much better in the months to come. But thanks so much, everyone, for jumping on. And a special thanks out to Falcon ERX for 2 Super Chat contributions. So this show basically brought to you by Falcon ERX. So appreciate that. Stay tuned for all the videos that we will be sending your way very soon. We talked to Iowa football today in Oklahoma. So those videos will be in your hands very soon. So great to see all of you out there. Thanks so much for joining in the live chat, and we will see you soon. Enjoy the college basketball.